So, as we all know, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk has been bashing Derek Carr for several years now. Now, we'll get to some examples, but there's trolling, which is an art form, which is still lame, but there's kind of it's a half science, half art. And then there's what Mike Florio does, which is just being wrong. And there's a big difference. Here's Mike Florio and his co-host Miles Simmons. They're on Pro Football Talk talking about Derek Carr. Specifically, this is coming right after the announcement of his new contract that he got. Take a listen.
I don't buy this crap. He wouldn't play for any other team. I mean, come on, man. I know I give him too hard of a time at times, but I don't buy the idea that he would not play football if all of a sudden the Raiders said we don't want you anymore. I just don't think that's true. No, because I think on one hand he's a big phony, but on the other hand, I think he plays the role of the phony so well he's kind of become that guy. And when you become that guy, it's kind of like the Tebow thing. You know, my wife would always tell me, why are you hard on Tim Tebow? I said, because there's an element of fraud there. He's selling as someone who he really is not. And that just kind of bothers me. I'm very big on being who you are, even if it pisses everyone off. I'd rather people be who they are. Life is easier when people are publicly who they are privately. And what you see with me is what you get, for better or worse, usually worse. But and she said, but you know what? If it's all fake, so what? It's a good way for him to be. Like, kids don't think of it the way that an adult does, that there's fraud there and he's not really that guy. He's a nice guy. He does nice things. So what if he's just doing it as some sort of an act or a show, or that's the guy he wants people to think that he is? He's still doing it. So with Derek Carr, like, I feel like he's acting like the way he thinks a franchise quarterback should act. And he's not really that guy. Maybe over the course of 8 years, he's become that guy. By repetition of pretending to be that guy, he has kind of spoken it into existence, if that makes any sense whatsoever. When he's not speaking in a fake country accent, he speaks that franchise quarterback role into existence. That's where I am with Derek Carr. So I like how he comes off. I just think sometimes he's full of crap.
Calling him a phony. You're shaking your head.
Dude, it just makes no sense. Like, he's acting, Florio is acting like he's known Carr his entire life, and he knows who he is and what he should act like, and the way he's acting is fake. Mm-hmm. He glances over the fact that, hey, fucking Carr grew up in fucking Houston, the early part of his life, until his fucking mid-teens or something like that.
So he spent almost his entire youth in Houston and Bakersfield, which is basically the south of California.
Yeah, even though it's in the middle of the state, that's the south.
Bakersfield is cowboy country, like ranches, farms,
so
cows.
Yeah, picture that. If you move from Texas to Bakersfield, not much difference. Mm-hmm. Not much difference there. Maybe a little bit drier, maybe not as humid as Houston is, but it's pretty much the same shit.
Better access to kale and yoga studios. That's about it. Otherwise, the exact same thing. And that's the big thing, right? Like, it's one thing to say, like, all right, and this is why with Florio, he's not a good troll. He's just incorrect. And there's two very different things. Like, Josh Dubois is a troll, right? He trolls Raider fans, right? From the Associated Press.
He gives facts.
Well, this is what he does. He'll put out stats that make the Raiders look bad without context. And if someone goes back at him with a stat that makes the Raiders look good, then he'll add context to make them look bad, right? So he's just like, well, these are just the stats. It's like, well, that shouldn't count because of, it was a strike year, or because they were moving that year, or because Carr's numbers are because of the line, or whatever, right? Like, you add, if context makes the Raiders look better, Dubois doesn't use it. If context makes the Raiders look bad, then he does use it, right? It's always, how can I spin the negative? It's like you with Derek Carr forever. How can I spin the negative with the Raiders? And that's Josh Dubois, right? That's not what Florio was doing. No. Florio was just being incorrect. Florio, like, he's a smart guy. Like, he's a lawyer. And, like, when it comes down to breaking down contracts and stuff, I read his stuff. Like, he knows his stuff when it comes down to breaking down contracts, legalese. He's good at that. But he's such a bad broadcaster, and they're two very different skills. You can be a great football mind terrible broadcaster. He can be a great broadcaster, terrible football mind. Florio's just a bad, lazy broadcaster. And so he says to himself, I need a Raiders take, right? Something happens with Raiders, I need a take. And he goes with Derek Carr sucks. How can I spin everything bad Derek Carr? And he can't even give one good example of why Derek Carr was a phony. How else can you prove you want to be a Raider forever than to only take $26 million in guaranteed money?
It doesn't make sense.
I don't care what any of you think of Derek Carr, the player, right? Let's put aside, is Derek Carr the best player ever, the worst player ever? Let's put that aside for a second. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, his actions have always backed up his words. He says something crazy like, I'd rather golf than play anywhere else. And he takes a contract that says so. Like, he has backed up every single thing he's ever said. You can't give one example of Derek Carr being a phony. Derek Carr saying A and doing B. Florio didn't even try.
The one thing he said was, I don't believe that he wouldn't play anywhere else. And that's like that. I said it in my live show. That's like saying, last night, I saved the universe from exploding and being demolished. You can't prove it.
Thank you. Wow,
you can't fucking prove. You can't prove that I did it because we're still here. But in the inverse, you can't prove right now that Carr's a phony by saying that because he's still playing. He's still playing for the Raiders. Now, if he does play for someone else, then you can say, oh, yeah, look, I thought he was a phony and this is why. But you can't say that now. And that's really the only reason he gave that he thinks he's a phony.
It's not even like, that's not even that example I think doesn't even play, because even though you can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he wouldn't play for somebody else, he's taken a contract that said that. Like he's literally taking one of the worst contracts a quarterback in his position may have ever taken to prove that he wants to do his best for this team and he wants to stay a Raider. Like, what else can you ask an NFL player to do to prove that he wants to be on that team? Every player says it. Well, not every player, right? Debo Samuel certainly doesn't. But basically every single player, they're not dummies. They pander to their owner. They pander to their fan base, right? They know they're entertainers. I love being a Panther. There's no place I'd rather be than Green Bay, Wisconsin, right? And players say that. Derek Carr put his money where his mouth was. Derek Carr did a contract that said, yeah, I'll take less to be here because I want to be here. No one else does that the way Derek Carr just did.
It's like he backtracks at the same time. He says, okay, yeah, I don't believe in this and that. And then when Derek Carr proves that, yeah, I do want to be a Raider, I do want to stay here, the only thing he can grasp onto is one thing that he can't prove at the time, which is he wouldn't play anywhere else, right? Mm-hmm. And another thing is, oh, yeah, he has a phony Texas accent. It's like, wait a second. Sometimes like after my accident, I developed a little bit of a lisp, and it comes out sometimes if I'm not very conscious of it. Mm-hmm. So, if Derek Carr is a little bit tired one day, or he's kind of like, going back and forth and just talking off, like maybe a question that's a little bit more personal, talking about personal feelings and stuff, he might let his guard down a little bit, and a little of that twang can come out.
He lived in Houston and Bakersfield.
Most of his life.
That's how you talk. That's how you talk. If you grew up in Houston and Bakersfield. Now, this isn't a one-time thing with Florio. Florio's been doing this for a long time. So our good friend at Raider Posts, highly recommend you follow him on social media, Instagram and Twitter. He put together, I cut this video down because it's pretty long, but he's did a video. This is Florio dating back to 3 years ago through about a year ago. Take a listen.
You can't tell me that Gruden, who is always thinking about everything, every permutation, every possibility, you can't tell me he hasn't at least some point considered whether or not he could upgrade at the quarterback position and maybe get a Ryan Fitzpatrick. I really do believe deep down that the Raiders are looking for a new brain for their Frankenstein monster, and that brain for an NFL team is a quarterback. Man, it's going to be a long decade or so for the Raiders until they find a franchise quarterback. The bottom line is, whether it's Nathan Peterman, Mike Glennon, or someone else, I think the real message here deep down is that John Gruden wants not Derek Carr. A lot of great quarterbacks out there, that John Gruden looks at and says, where's mine? I just think that John Gruden is going to be looking for somebody else, whether it's Jameis Winston or someone else. I think they're going to look and see what else is out there. And I think Derek Carr could very well be gone. You know how John Gruden feels about Tom Brady. Right?
Yeah.
And the idea that this gets him out of the Derek Carr conundrum, and we know that Derek Carr isn't good enough in John Gruden's eyes. That's a given. Now, sorry, Derek. You can block us on Twitter, but you can't block us on TV. You can change the channel. The idea that Derek Carr is going to take every snap that he wants to take with the Raiders for as long as he wants to is not only naive, it's incorrect. I've heard from a source that I trust that the Raiders are not going to trade him, but I've yet to report it at PFT because I still think even under those circumstances, you can't rule out John Gruden catching a wild hair.
Mike Florio has been taking L's in the Derek Carr discussion for half a decade. For 5 years now, he's been saying he's going to be traded. He's going to be gone. John Gruden's going to have Nathan Peterman replace him. Ryan Fitzpatrick replace him. Jameis Winston replace him.
Mike Glennon. Jesus.
Mike Glennon replace him. He's going to trade him away. Mike Florio has been wrong about Derek Carr for half a decade, and he just keeps going. And this is the difference between being a troll and just being a bad broadcaster and being wrong. He's just saying this is going to happen, and it never, ever, ever does.
Eventually, the Raiders are going to move on from Derek Carr. Eventually. Okay? No one plays
Watch,
for
Derek Carr's going to play for the Raiders for 25 years, and Florio's going to be like, see, I told you. I told you he was going to be gone.
That's why he's sticking to his guns, because eventually he's going to be right. The Raiders will move on eventually. And that's why he can hang his hat on that. And because nothing will be worse for good old fuckface, as I like to call him, between you, me, and Rory. Nothing will be better for him, or worse for him, excuse me, than him changing his position on Carr and then the Raiders getting rid of him soon after that. Then he's just like, oh fuck, I was wrong the whole time.
You can't be right if you've been wrong for 5 years. Like you're not like it's like saying, hey, I have the perfect blackjack strategy. You always hit when you have 20. And I bust 87 times in a row, but I get an ace one time, and I turn around and be like, yeah, see, Soto, I'm right. Perfect strategy. You always hit on a 20. Yeah. There's no better example of how dumb this was than seeing Miles Simmons' face when he was going through that. Look at this guy. Look at Miles. Look at Miles. He's like, look,
Florio, you're an idiot.
He's like, how the hell did I end up co-hosting this show with Florio? He's like, oh, what?
Freaking pencil neck geek.
What the hell is this guy talking about? I accidentally, I didn't mean to screenshot this. I was just like, pause the video, and it stopped right here. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Look at
Does Florio have Lego man hair? Is that like the hair you just pop on the top of the head?
Hair plugs?
I don't know.
You and I aren't in a position to talk about a man's hair like that.
It's true.
So the latest thing, so that was Florio immediately after. Now, Florio, in his effort to continue to be wrong, doubled down on that comment. He put out an article talking about how Derek Carr is being paid like a top 10 quarterback when he's not a top 10 quarterback. It's basically saying Derek Carr is being overpaid, the most team-friendly contract in quarterback history, and Florio still, in his devotion to taking L's, is saying he's not a top 10 quarterback and shouldn't be paid like one. In the article, he said, when performing an up and down exercise on whether any given player is a top 10 quarterback, the total list of top 10 quarterbacks quickly reaches 20. Thus, given that Derek Carr is once again being paid like a top 10 quarterback, unless the Raiders dump him after 1 year of his new 4-year deal, it's fair to ask whether he's a top 10 quarterback. The easy answer, no, he's not. He's not being paid like a top 10 quarterback. And yet, he wants to shit on Derek Carr somehow. So he starts it off with an incorrect premise just so he can talk about Derek Carr not being a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, it's getting old now, and it's starting to irk me that people are counting other people's money. Like it doesn't, and it's not only is it just a bad practice to do, it's also not the right way you want to look at someone's contract. Who cares how much we pay them? These owners all have enough money to pay all their players a shit ton of money. The thing we have to focus on is what's the cap hit? That's what you got to focus on. So is he a top 10 against the cap in quarterbacks? No. And that's what you have to look at. This is what that cap hit is what hamstrings your team, not the total money. Unless you're freaking Watson and everything of it's every bit of it's guaranteed. But even this year, his cap hit is what 1 million guaranteed or something like that.
Well, look, here's a look at the top quarterback's salary. Just salary, right? Derek Carr, not top 10, number 12. Right? So like, okay, he's not top 10 in salary, Florio. You're wrong there. Okay, maybe he meant cap hit. Maybe that's what Florio meant. Let's give Florio the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he meant, all right, he's top 10 in cap hit. Here's a look at cap hit. Number 12. Not even top 10 in cap hit. All right, well, maybe Florio's thinking, oh, maybe it's guaranteed money he's talking about. Maybe he's top 10 in guaranteed money. Carr's 25th in guaranteed money at quarterback. 25th. By no metric.
Crazy.
Is Derek Carr a top 10 paid quarterback? And I'm not even having the is Carr a top 10 quarterback or not conversation. We'll save that for another. There's plenty of time to have that conversation.
Yeah.
He's not, by any metric, paid like a top 10 quarterback. By the time that like 35, 40, $40 million kick in the next, 2, 3, 4 seasons, you won't be top 10 then either.
Never.
That's the way quarterback pay is going.
Yep.
He had all the leverage to be a top 5 paid quarterback, maybe better, because that's what always happens, right? The next contract's always the biggest one, right? He had the leverage to be right there, like right behind Aaron Rodgers, if he wanted to, if he really played hardball, but he didn't. He didn't play hardball. And yet, and some, again, this isn't Florio trolling. It's not him having an opinion based on a fact that's wrong. It's him getting the facts wrong. Like, he's so dedicated to shitting on Carr, he'll get facts wrong to tell another fact that to be the basis of another fact that's wrong.
I think what he's doing is he's just hoping that people don't look at his shit. Because honestly, it's too easy, and it's the wrong way to look at things. Again, the total amount of a contract, who cares how much they get paid? There's plenty of money to go around in the NFL. It's about how much are you taking up what limited amount of money you can spend, a specific type of money you can spend, which is cap hit. Yeah. That's the most important thing, is what's his cap hit. And it just doesn't make any sense for him to count his, like, who cares how much he gets paid overall? It doesn't matter. In the scope of NFL, it doesn't matter. All that matters is your cap hit.
I think this all stems from when Derek Carr blocked Florio on Twitter. And he's literally the only guy that took it to heart. Derek Carr blocks hundreds of people on Twitter. He's blocking everywhere. He's like Dikembe Mutombo, just waving his finger at every single person
not
that has any piece of negativity, right? And every single person who's blocked by Derek Carr is met with a shrug. It's like, yeah, that's Carr. Whatever. Moving on. Water off the duck's back. No sweat off my sack. I'll be fine. Florio's the only guy that spent the last half decade pissed that Derek Carr blocked him, and he has a vendetta. He's the only guy. He's the only guy so sensitive that he actually takes it to heart, like a 13-year-old on his Snapchat.
Yeah, I think Adam Hill actually wears it as a badge of honor.
Most people do.
Yeah, he got me.
He
got me. Carr got me too.
I said I didn't like his haircut. Now I'm blocked. Right? Like, that's how Derek Carr is. He's like, even the 1% negativity, you're blocked, like everybody else. And everyone,
he's acting like a heartbroken fucking tween. Like, come on, dude, relax.
Bad.
It doesn't make sense. It's just like you said, it's just lazy. It's just lazy reporting. It's just lazy commentary, lazy analysis. I mean, if you're gonna do something like that, at least get some facts right where you can pull back and say, these are the facts. This is what I'm looking at. It just doesn't make any sense.
If you want to troll, then troll, but don't just take L's. There's a giant difference. Congratulations for making it all the way to the end of our video. If you want Darren Waller to catch 20 touchdown passes next season and for Max Crosby to have 30 sacks, go ahead and subscribe and click the next video.